this evening? No, okay. I do have a town mayor's announcement because I'd like to update council on the station accessibility project. I had an email a few days ago from Network Rail, which says that the preferred option, which was the one supported by the council, has now been endorsed by the Department for Transport to progress, and no further formal sign-offs from the department are required, although they will be kept informed and continue to monitor the project through regular updates. The next stage is the detailed design work and then tendering for a contractor. The project team has set what it believes is a challenging programme for implementation, although it will never be quick enough for us, I might add. It's intended that the work will start on site in the summer of 2022 and that the new access will be ready in winter 2022, so quite a long way away. But Network Rail say that the intention is for the Biggleswade accessibility scheme to set a new benchmark in the organisation, i.e. in Network Rail, for delivering successfully and safely at speed. So we'll see what happens with that one. I'm now on to public open session. Would members of the public please indicate with their electronic hand if they'd like to speak. The normal procedure applies. Members of the public can put questions or address the council pertaining to matters listed on the agenda at this session. Each speaker will be identified and that will be recorded in the minutes unless that person requests otherwise. And each speaker will be allowed 1 3-minute slot and there'll be a warning after 2.5 minutes. So we have 7 members in attendance. Does anybody wish to speak, please? I'm not getting any indications, so I'm going to move on. We don't have an invited speaker. Do we have any members' questions, please? Councillor Grant-Fage.
Thank you. Do we have an update on the town centre decluttering, please? We're due a report from Central Beds Council and we can't proceed with any upgrades to street furniture until we have this report. So have any efforts been made to chase it, and do we have any sort of update, please?
Madam Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. The situation is that there's been constant bombardment, if I can use that term, by the town centre ops manager of the relevant officer at Central Beds. We understand that the officer concerned is keen to proceed with the decluttering, but we have not been able to get out of him the schedule of the works that he intends to undertake. I think we've got to the point where we as officers really have no further clout to pursue this. I do understand that some of the joint sort of between-hatted councillors might wish to sort of help us on this.
Yeah, because he may be keen to proceed, but actually we need to know what's planned and make sure that it fits in with what we're trying to do on the Market Square. Councillor Fage again, please.
Yeah, thank you. If I could just come back on that then. So maybe first thing tomorrow morning, hopefully Councillor Mark Foster and Councillor Ian Bond can look forward to having that in their inbox with the escalation, basically saying, does this report exist? And, you know, hopefully they can help to get to the bottom of it. I know Councillor Bond in particular was keen to assist with this, but hasn't been copied on any of those emails. So maybe we could do that first thing tomorrow, please, because this is an urgent priority for the town centre.
Thank you. Do I have other councillors' questions, please? Okay, I'm moving on. I'm now with the minutes of the meeting of the 14th of July, so now go through them for accuracy first. Anything on page 1? Page 2. Page 3. On page 3, in the second paragraph, I would like to ask council to approve a deletion of 3 words, CBC's design codes. The sentence should read, there should be no conflict between the neighbourhood plan design codes and the garden community projects. The garden community design codes, in this instance, will supersede any other codes that Central Beds has got. May I have permission to delete those 3 words, please? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything else on page 3? Page 4. Councillor Pullinger.
Thank you. In relation to item 8A, I don't think the minute as recorded really conveys the question that I asked. So what it says that I asked whether the centre will reopen once the works and risk assessments were completed. What I actually asked was, will the risk assessments be completed in parallel to the floor works so that the centre can open after the floor works are finished, which was the critical point, is that they were in parallel. So can I propose the wording be adjusted to, he asked if it could be confirmed that risk assessments will be completed while the works are underway, so that the centre can reopen once the floor works are finished.
Okay, is everybody happy with that? Thank you. Anything else on page 4? Page 5?
Page 5.
Councillor Leslie Fage.
Yes, thank you. On the paragraph, just underneath it talks about the football club, and then the next line says he will control the pitches. I get why they've used that word, but it sounds like the football pitches. So if we could change it to he will control his land or his fields.
I think it should be pitches because that's the technical word for this, but he will.
Oh, right.
We could say he will control his pitches.
Right, yes. So it's not.
Is that all right?
Up with the football. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Is everybody happy? Yeah. Okay. Anything else on page 5? Page 6? Page 7? Page 8? There's just one on page 8 from me, I'm afraid. Again, on the second paragraph, it should be the neighbourhood planning group. It's not a committee. Is everybody happy with that change, please? Yeah, okay, thank you. Anything else on page 8? Page 9? No, there wouldn't be. Okay, may I have approval for the minutes, please? Can you indicate if you approve the minutes? That's fine, thank you very much. Now we go through again for matters arising. Any matters arising on page 1? Page 2? Page 3?
May I?
Yes, Councillor Knight, please.
Thank you. Item 6A. So the interim deputy clerk kindly took an action to circulate an update on the implementation of the new parking orders that we agreed on the 11th of February. I don't believe I've seen an update. So did I miss an email, or perhaps can an update be provided this evening, please?
Apologies. I thought I saw an update come through to everybody from Simon.
In relation to the new parking orders, was that? I don't think I've seen that. Did anyone else?
No, if that's the case, then that's my bad. My apologies. Sorry, the town clerk wants to come in.
If I may, yes. I mean, the update, as the deputy town clerk has said, was from Simon concerning the re-implementation of the existing orders as temporarily amended. But no, I actually myself did a follow-up, and I thought I had informed members. I apologise if I haven't, but I actually did a follow-up the following day to the office of the CBC officer who's supposed to be dealing with this, and has been dealing with this, I believe, since about February, when I first sent him the was before lockdown, before the the orders were actually sent to him for him to consider. And I've been constantly sending emails to him, on a regular basis since then. And following last week's meeting, or the meeting before last week, I did follow up on this. I know I wasn't at the meeting, but I saw the video the next day. I did send another email, which again, there's been no further response from, I mentioned his name, Marcel Coffey's office.
I think this might be something else for our Central Beds councillors to follow up, please. So can we minute that we will ask our colleague ward councillors to follow that one up?
Please, I think that would be appropriate, given it seems we've made no progress.
Thank you. Anything else on page 3, matters arising? Councillor Grant-Fage.
6C, do we have any update on the public toilets, please?
Shall I answer that one? Yes, essentially the aim is to have them open as from the 3rd of August. There may be 1 or 2 things that have to be put in place. I am advised by the town centre operations manager that probably there will have to be an increased cleaning regime, because if they're open all day, to have them just clean once a day is not sufficient under the regulations. So I'll have to advise members of that. But there are various measures that need to be put in place, including sort of hand cleansing materials and so forth. They understand that's all being done. And as I say, the aim is to have them open. And that's both the disabled toilets, the changing facility, and the main toilets appropriately from the 3rd of August.
Thank you. Anything else on page 3? Councillor Alban.
Yeah, on that point, it was my understanding that the disabled toilets were open, because I did email the deputy clerk about that some time ago, and I believe his reply said that they were open. So I'm a little confused now.
Yes, if I could perhaps clarify, it was my belief that they were open because the market traders had all been given radar keys. Unfortunately, I think there was a misinterpretation of the information that I was given, because while those radar keys were issued, and of course while the market was there, the toilets were open. At other times the toilets may not have been open all the while, because there's an additional lock, which I apologise, I was not aware of that arrangement. So they have been locked some of the time, I'm afraid, and open at other times.
Thank you. Councillor Pullinger.
Yeah, just on that point, when I was in the market during the week, it wasn't a market day, but the disabled toilet, what the locks other than the radar lock were unlocked at that point, as you can see when they open or close. But there was still a toilet closed sign on the door, so you probably would have been able to access it with a radar key, but there was signage to say it was closed.
Okay, thank you. Shall we move on? Are there any matters arising on page 4? Councillor Pullinger.
So back to the Orchard Centre. So I was just wondering if we could have an update on the works at the Orchard Centre and potential reopening date for the Orchard Centre as well, please.
Yes, Madam Mayor, if I may. The contractors are in this week. They're due to actually start their refurbishment work tomorrow. I understand that will take a few days, and then we have to have something like 2 to 3 weeks of settlement before we can then inspect the floorage and decide whether the centre can actually then be opened. The risk assessments, I believe, are, if not already been completed, are being done. But to give a firm date obviously depends upon, one, whether the works actually go smoothly. Secondly, I note to Councillor Mark Knight on this, whether the contractors actually turn up on time, and thirdly, whether the batons that are going to be put down to stop this sort of shifting settlement are successful. But we won't know till about 3 weeks from now whether that's going to be the case. At that point, I think we can take a view. If all goes well, and it was minuted last time that everything, you know, would actually be in place, then they could open. Then that's when it would open. But to give an actual date at this point, I think is a bit premature. I can only give you a guesstimate based upon the information that I have at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else on page 4, colleagues? Page 5? Page 6? Page 7? Page 8? Page 9. Okay, so we've done matters arising. We're now on to planning applications, and the first one is 41 Shortmead Street, conversion and extension to existing workshop, etc. Something that I think we've had in front of us before. Councillor Pullinger.
Yeah, so 2 things I just want to mention before I speak to this. So firstly, the link in the agenda was incorrect and took you to the wrong application. So members may not be aware, if they didn't notice that was the case. And also, although this is described as 41 Shortmead Street, it's actually the same application site as the rear of 33 Shortmead Street that we have dealt with on a number of other occasions before and was recently refused. That said, I think I probably stood alone at the last time we considered this in either, I think I abstained rather than vote for an objection last time. I'm not sure which way to go this time. I do think it's an improved design with the movement of the building and providing the additional turning space. There is adequate parking there, which I know was a concern, but there are 6 spaces for the 3 properties. I think that is adequate. So I'll leave it to other members to offer their thoughts, but I'm not minded to have a strong objection on this occasion.
Thank you. Colleagues. Councillor Grant-Fage.
We've had reservations over this before, although it looks like it might be a slightly improved design. It seems as issues over access and other things are still, and the design is still sort of prevalent there. So maybe could I ask that Councillor Bond calls this one in, please? Because, you know, we're in a position whereby we could end up getting in a bit of a mess over this, given that this has been back and forth umpteen times already, and we need to make sure that this is scrutinised properly.
Are you happy with that, Councillor Bond? Yeah, okay.
Yes, I'm happy to call this in. Looking at the planning, I won't pass comment on it because of my position in DMC. This has been before the council now 6 times, and really in reality it hasn't changed much. So whatever council wants to do their own viewpoint on it. This is something similar to this happened before in the past, many years ago. On Pizza Express, the application kept coming back to council, and what eventually CBC did at the request of the town council was to ask to actually refuse to determine the application. I don't know if that's the case, if that'd be the right situation this time, but I think as council requests, I will actually call it in and have a chat with planners to see what they think about it. But it doesn't look any really significantly different.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Knight.
Thank you. Only to suggest that we reject and you attach the previous comments we've made against this application.
Seconded.
Thank you very much. Any more comments? So the proposal is to object as previously, and that Councillor Bond will call the application in. All those in favour, please. Thank you, that's a majority. Right, I'm on to 10 Torquay Close, new garage and garage conversion and link to existing extension. Any comments, please, colleagues? Councillor Pullinger.
Yeah, so I think the only potential concern I had when I looked at this was the potential on the impact on parking with the building of the new garage on the existing driveway. Having said that, looking at the detail, there does remain a parking space on the drive in front of the new garage, and on that basis I would propose no objection subject to neighbours.
Is that seconded? Thank you. All those in favour of no objection subject to neighbours? Thank you very much. 40 Potton Road, double-storey side and rear extension. Comments, please. Councillor Pullinger.
So again, looking at this, so this is a 2-bedroom house that's being extended to become a 3-bedroom house. Again, I think the only real grounds for concern is around the parking. There are 2 existing spaces which are being retained. So I don't think there's necessarily strong grounds for objection, but I think we might want to register a concern around parking on the basis that there is very limited access to on-street parking in this area. And if they're increasing the number of bedrooms, there may well be an impact.
Okay, so you want that put as a comment rather than an objection? Yeah. Okay, seconded? Thank you. All those in favour then of not objecting but making the comment about parking? And this will be subject to neighbours as well. Okay, thank you very much. Right, I'm moving on to item 10, the accounts. I think this is over to you, Councillor Ramsey.
Thank you. I'd like to propose or ask you to accept an amendment, please, to number 10A2, detailed income and expenditure. It's on page 3 of the accounts that you've got in front of you. If you look down under Orchard Community Centre, go past the income and then come down past salaries and rates and water rates, the cleaning costs appear to be £4,795. We queried this at the last accounts system because we were convinced that they had been wrongly coded. And despite an awful lot of pressure being brought upon Derek and his accounts team by the town clerk and the admin staff, they were not able to clarify this in time for this meeting. But I have an amendment which Philip will put in writing, that this 4795 should actually be coded to the council offices for 3245, to the Orchard Centre for 1040, to the Market Square Toilets 3950, and the remaining £27 should have been coded as stationery. If you will accept those accounts with those amendments on them, I'm prepared to propose them, but we will all be getting written confirmation from the town.
Okay.
If I may, Madam Mayor, I'll just say that I will be able to produce, because it arrived too late really to circulate, but I will be able to produce the amended sheets relating to the income and expenditure later this week.
Okay.
So members will have those as confirmation of what has just been reported by Councillor Ramsey.
Thank you.
Okay.
So item 10A then is the detailed balance sheet, the detailed income and expenditure, and the current bank account receipts and payments. And I would recommend that, subject to the changes discussed, we receive and adopt those accounts.
Okay, I've got Councillor Pullinger indicating.
Yeah, so just a clarification on what Councillor Ramsey said. So it's not actually the 4,000 and something on the Orchard Centre line that was incorrect. It's on the Biggleswade Magistrates Court section, the actual spend to date for cleaning costs, which is 8,000 and something, I think, which has been coded incorrectly, and that's the amount that should be spread across the 3 categories. And the 3 figures that Councillor Ramsey read out add up to plus the 27 for the stationery adds up to that amount. So just
Okay.
clarify that.
Do I have a seconder for Councillor
I'll
Ramsey?
second as well the amendments and the proposal.
Thank you very much. So all those in favour of receiving and adopting the accounts with those changes to the cleaning costs, could you show, please? Thank you very much. I think that's unanimous. Right, now we have the final internal audit report. Are you taking this as well, Councillor Ramsey?
Yes, I would like to point out that it has been a good audit report. There were no issues found that needed to be urgently addressed. Overall good report, and I'd like to congratulate the staff and thank them for their hard work on it. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Councillor Fade, you want to come in?
Yeah, my only concern with this audit report is that it is quite complimentary of the way the accounts are coded, and I know, given the conversation we've had literally 30 seconds ago, that this is a problem. If they seem to think they're well coded, I would question whether or not they're good auditors, because I think this is probably one of the things that we need to get on top of at some point in the next couple of months. So I'm not going to propose anything, but it's a comment which is, I think, quite an important one, because we know that is a challenge, and the fact that the auditors have not highlighted it concerns me.
Okay. I think we have a proposal to approve any, or we should be approving any recommendations. I think there's one recommendation about employee fidelity insurance.
Yes.
Are we taking that forward to F&GP?
Yes, we are. Yes.
Okay. So on that basis, can I have a show, please, of all those who will receive the report and approve? Thank you very much. Thank you. And the last item under accounts is the year-end accounts for the 31st of March 2020. Do you wish to say anything about this, Councillor Ramsey?
No, thank you.
Okay. Well, we have the annual government statement, and we have the accounting statements, and we have to approve and adopt the accounts, which have all been circulated with the agenda. May I propose from the chair that we do adopt and approve the governance statement for the year ending March 2020? Do I have a seconder for that, please? Thank you. All those in favour of adopting and approving the governance statement, please? That's unanimous, thank you. Right, now I have to actually sign these things during the meeting for it to be legal, so that's the governance statement duly signed. And we have the accounting statements, which is the sheet that you've had with all the boxes ticked. Are you happy I should sign those as being accurate? Could you show, please? Thank you, that's unanimous again. So I will now sign . So that's the accounting statement signed. And then finally, the accounts themselves. Do I have a seconder for my motion to approve and adopt the accounts, please? Thank you, Councillor Pullinger. All those in favour, please, of adopting the accounts? That's unanimous again, thank you. One has a horror of making a mistake on these formal papers.
Could I point out, Madam Mayor, that there are several places where it has to be signed. one year I got criticised as clerk somewhere else because they got missed in one place. It's very easily done.
I thought I'd marked the place where I had to sign, but I will look for others.
Yes, I have to sign in certain places. I have to sign on page 4.
Where I just signed as responsible financial officer. I'm not seeing other places.
Page 10. Sign on page 10.
That's where I've just signed.
Okay. Let me just double check.
Because you sign on page 4 as RFO.
So I sign on page 4. And I also sign on page 10. Perhaps it's me that has to sign on 2 places.
Well, make sure you do that.
Yes. So I got severely criticised one year for only signing one place. That's the only thing that auditor could actually pick up. So I do apologise.
Yeah.
That's why I've been pedantic. We just want to make sure we get it right.
Right. Well, I will check through again when the meeting's over, just to make sure that everything's signed and dated as it needs to be. Okay, I think that's the accounts seen to. We now have items for consideration, and the first one is the consultation on a new model member code of conduct. And we have to comment by the 17th of August. Do I have anybody wishing to speak, please? Any comments to make? Councillor Pullinger?
Yeah, so I was the one who proposed that we postpone consideration of this so that we had time to look at it. So I think it's only right that I actually show that I have looked at the document and have looked at and thought about it. I don't think there's a huge amount really to comment on. I think broadly speaking, it's a well written document. I think there's really only 2 things I would comment on, and one is the fact that there isn't any mechanism for sanctions or enforcement really built into the code of conduct. And I believe there's historical reasons for that as to why that was removed. But if we're going to have a code of conduct, then we really ought to have a way of actually managing people who breach it. The second area I wanted to mention was defining the scope of it and when it applies. So it's quite clear in terms.
Could you say that again, Robert, please?
Sorry,
it's breaking up, Rob. Sorry.
Oh, I'm not sure why. But did you hear the first point I made?
Yes.
Okay, so it's just coming on to that. So the second point is around the scope and when it applies, and it's quite clear that it definitely applies when someone is acting as a councillor or says that they're acting as a councillor in terms of what's proposed. There's an area around when the councillor is in public, and that effectively includes at all times on social media. And in this day and age, people are on social media a lot, including councillors, and many councillors, myself included, try to separate our effectively private life on social media from when we're acting as councillors. But the draft code of conduct doesn't reflect that, and it effectively says at all times that you are on social media, you are considered to be in your councillor role. And I think while we obviously should all uphold the behaviours of councillors at all times, I think there should be a level of separation between our public role and our private lives. And I know other councillors that I've seen who've, ironically on social media, commenting about this consultation have had similar thoughts as well.
Okay. I suppose the only issue there is you never know when something's going to be forwarded on social media that you might think is a private comment to a friend or something. Yeah. Do I have other comments? Okay, so are you making a proposal on this, Councillor Pullinger?
So I think I would make an observation. I think we should make an observational comment about the lack of the ability to enforce it and the lack of sanctions built into it. I guess I'd like to gauge other members' views on the social media and the public versus private aspect before making a proposal on that, really.
Do other councillors wish to speak? Perhaps you should go ahead, Councillor Pullinger. Nobody seems to have it. Oh, Councillor Ramsey, sorry.
I would like to say, in my opinion, that if you are using public websites and public access like that, then you should behave as if you were in public, and you should be as discreet as you would be if you were in public. It's a very difficult line to go across, I know, but if you relax too much when you're on the media, it has untold feedback and complications, as it has done in the past with other councillors who couldn't work out the difference between personal issues and personal comments and what they would make in a public meeting. And if you're on public media, I think you should behave as if you were in public. Thank you.
Councillor Knight.
Thank you. I think I'd like to agree with Councillor Ramsey's view. So, yeah, sure, councillors may have different social media accounts for different audiences, and you may choose to only share your holiday snaps with people who you know personally rather than in public. But I think our conduct always has to be of the highest standard and that of which the community would expect of a councillor. So I don't think you can separate private and public life when it comes to behaviour.
Okay. Councillor Foster, Frank Foster.
I also support Councillor Ramsey's view.
Thank you. So, Councillor Pullinger, you want to make a proposal on the sanctions issue, and we've been through that wording. I think we understand what you mean there and about the lack of ability to enforce. Are you wanting to add anything
on the other comment?
I'm sorry, something broke up. I don't know whether it's you or me, but I didn't hear that.
I think it's my end that I'm having some technical difficulties this evening. Sorry about that. I won't make a proposal on the other comment.
Okay, so do we have a seconder for the proposal about no sanctions, please? Thank you very much. So all those in favour of our response being we have an issue with the lack of sanctions and therefore the lack of ability to enforce the code of conduct. All those in favour, please. I think that's unanimous, not quite. Okay, thank you. Those against? No? Any abstentions? All right, thank you. We now move on to the Central Bedfordshire Local Plan. And we have a consultation in front of us from Central Beds where they've submitted more documents to the inspectorate and they're looking for comments on it. There's a list on the agenda of the additional evidence, quite a lot to look at. Do I have comments from councillors, please? Councillor Grant-Fage.
Yes, this is quite interesting. There's quite a lot of detail to work through here. Obviously, huge amount of respect for the inspectors. They're obviously planning experts. They do know what they're talking about. But at the same time, we know our town and we know the challenges that it faces. And we know that, planning academia, if you like, can't always just be universally applied. So if I could just take a couple of moments to talk through perhaps some of the key changes or some of the key things which have been flagged and where I think we should respond. So in terms of things that we can support based on the changes that Central Beds are proposing, I think we can probably be supportive on further industrial development to the south of the town. Not an easy decision and not a nice choice to have to make in terms of the loss of green space, but realistic that if you can't build industrial units between the East Coast Main Line and the A1, where can you build them? And there's benefits to be had there for residents of our town in terms of high-skilled jobs, which they will benefit from. I think we can also be really positive about the proposed A1 footbridge. and it seems to be a footbridge, although it would be useful to have some clarity over what a few more specifics about what that bridge would look like. But in terms of linking up the east and west sides of the A1 and the green spaces either side of that, that would be very positive. Although there is something in there about Windermere Drive, which is a little bit confusing. So perhaps some clarity over the exact location of that bridge. I think that's consistent with positions that we've held in the past, even if we've said relatively little about industrial development. I think that's a consistent position for us to take. Where we have been very firm in the past is around residential development, though, and I think we need to be very clear here and use this response as an opportunity to restate the position that we have had for over 2 years now. So in terms of what is being proposed, the phase 1 is going from an allocated site to a strategic site because it has outline planning permission. That's the 1,500 houses to the east of the town. I'd like to propose that we add on top of that the allocation of the so-called phase 2 up to 5,500 houses. This is something that we've said in the past, not an easy decision, not a nice decision. No one takes any satisfaction out of losing green space. However, a necessary choice in order to be able to control future growth across the next few decades. So perhaps just in relation to that, we can address some of the inspector's concerns about how that would integrate to the existing community and how it will fit with the rest of the town. You know, we have a positive relationship with the developers who own that land. They engage with us very well on the neighbourhood plan, on bids for infrastructure, on garden communities, on all manner of things. And I think we can offer assurances that we as the representatives of our town will do everything we can to find innovative and interesting ways of bringing that community not just together, but also linking it nicely to our existing town. I think that's something that it's an obstacle, but it's not something that should rule out the allocation of that site. Where I think we should also raise concerns is around the countryside gaps that are being proposed to be removed, particularly if we're still talking about land east and the allocations of phase 1 and phase 2. I think we can raise concerns over the loss of the countryside gap south of Sutton and the loss of the countryside gap northwest of Dunton. Although we support, reluctantly, but, firmly support development to the east, we don't want to see expansion east almost consuming existing settlements. So at least some sort of a gap about where these new communities stop and where Dunton starts and where Sutton starts would be an appropriate measure, I think, and that would be fair to those residents who have chosen to live in those villages. Further to that then, and finally, I'd like to propose that we restate for the 20th time our position on land north of Biggleswade, that we are very disappointed that there's not that much to be said about HAS 06, and I think we should strongly object again to that being allocated. And again, the removal of that countryside gap north of the town is extremely concerning given the proximity to Biggleswade Common. So I'd like to propose that we send some kind of summary of that as a separate letter to Central Beds Council, and also engage Richard Fuller, Member of Parliament, inform him at least of our position on this, and ask him if he would wish to provide representations which support those that we've made. Apologies, that's a little bit lengthy, and very happy to listen to what other councillors have to say about this, but we have a very long held position which is measured, which is intelligent, and which is in the interests of Biggleswade, and I think we have to use this as an opportunity to restate that and confirm to Central Beds again why we are making the arguments that we are.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder for the proposal that's been?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Thank you. Can I just say that it would be easier if we refer to Appendix 7 instead of Phase 2, because that was the terminology used in the examination in public. So yeah, so if we refer to it as Appendix 7, then the inspectors will know what it means, because this is a Central Beds consultation, but responses will have to go to the inspectors, and the inspectors will decide where they take it from there. Right, further comments, councillors, colleagues? Anybody wish to speak? No? Okay, well, we've got a detailed proposal. We're approving the economic development. On the A1 footbridge, I'm understanding that path that we wish to cross the A1, I think it's a bridle way. Do we need to ask for a bridle bridge? Does anybody know for certain? We could check that up afterwards and change it if necessary, because it does make a difference.
So I'm not certain, but I did ask in my remarks for clarity over what exactly that bridge is. So maybe we can just put that in as an extra line, Madam Mayor, particularly confirmation if it's a bridle way that it's a bridle bridge. Yeah,
and we also want confirmation of the location of that. And then we restating our support for the 1,500 houses to the east, but also of the rest of the development in Appendix 7. We want the gaps, the countryside gaps between Sutton and the development and Dunton and the development to be recognised. Land North we want to object to. We want the countryside gap to the north of Land North, and we're asking that this, to emphasise, it should be in a separate letter, and we want to engage Richard Fuller and ask for his support on these issues. All those in favour, please. That's everybody. Thank you very much. Okay, we're back to our footpaths now. Biggleswade footpath 33. Does anybody wish to speak on this? Councillor Pullinger?
Yeah, so just to say, I don't think there's much we can do on this one because it's already been extended, but the notice is somewhat confusing in that it says that the closure is expected to take place sometime in the past. Yeah, I think we just note this one.
Okay, so the proposal to note it, are we happy with that? All those in favour of noting? Thank you. And then footpath 36. Any comments on that, please? No? Are we noting this one as well? Councillor Knight?
If I'm understanding this correctly, it's some surfacing work which seems to be forecast to take 6 months, which seems, if I'm understanding it correctly, extraordinarily slow.
I'm looking at the letter and it says from the 3rd of August for 8 weeks. So I'm not sure where you've got the longer time from.
Oh, sorry, you're quite right. 8 weeks. Yeah, that still seems extraordinarily slow.
I'd agree there. Councillor Pullinger, please. And then
yes, I mean, I think I was just going to say that it was 8 weeks. The closure, permission to close it is for up to a period of 6 months that they can do it, but the time they're forecasting is 8 weeks. Yeah. I think we should note it. I don't think we need to necessarily make any formal response, but I think we should make a comment that we welcome the actual works to improve the surface of the the footpaths. But I don't think we necessarily need to respond to this particular notice.
Thank you. Councillor North. Councillor North.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just unmuting. Yeah, I think we've come across this issue before, haven't we? Just commenting on the length of time that people are raising. Because haven't we had the explanation that they put in like a maximum period of time that it's going to take and hope to, you know, so it might only take them a couple of days, but they put down 8 weeks so that they might do some work on day 1 and then some, you know, finish it off on day 56. And that's within the permission they've had. So something like that, you know, to give them flexibility. So I don't think we need to worry too much about the length of time that it's going to take them. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you.
Probably will only be closed for a few days that it takes to do the actual work.
And they don't like to pin themselves down to the actual dates, do they? Councillor Knight.
Well, just to say, I don't think that should be encouraged. I think that sounds like sort of adding bunts to the schedule. And if it's a week's work, the closure should be for a week. If you need to add a week contingency, add a second week. But 8 weeks, I think that's unhelpful if there are signs which potentially force people to take an alternative route for longer than necessary.
Okay, Councillor Strawn, and then Councillor Mark Foster.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As a point of information, most road closures, footpath closures, etc., are for a longer period of time than they're actually intending to do the work. It gives them the opportunity to carry it out within that period, but not necessarily setting a set date. So I think it's fairly standard practice over the years to have this kind of lengthy period in there, although the work might only actually take a couple of days. If you look at all roadwork notices, they always tend to give them a 6-month period to cover it. So I wouldn't be particularly concerned, rather, as Councillor North has just explained.
Thank you. Councillor Foster, Mark Foster.
I think we should welcome the fact that it's being done, as Councillor Pullinger has alluded to. I think timing-wise is actually quite appropriate as well. The fact it's in August when the children are not going to be using the pathway, it's entirely appropriate. Let's hope that the work is done prior to the returning to school.
Okay, thank you. So we're welcoming in the work, we're welcoming in the fact that it's in August, but we're hoping it won't take 8 weeks. Is everybody happy to note it on that basis?
Sounds good.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Sorry, I need the right bit of my agenda. The next item is a new website. Who would like to speak on this, please? Councillor Fage, Grant Fage.
Yes, this is quite urgent actually, because I understand that new regulations are coming in, which mean that we need to make a few changes to our website to get it compliant. I think it's also good practice to have a modern website, and goodness knows, I think ours could just do with a little bit of a tidy up and a little bit of a modernisation. So I know I certainly struggle to find certain things on there. So look, I think we probably need a working group for this. I've spoken to Councillor Pullinger, who I think is keen to chair that working group in his capacity as Deputy Chairman of F&GP. So I'd like to propose that we set up that working group, and that Councillor Pullinger, if he's willing to accept, chairs it.
Thank you. Councillor North and then Councillor Pullinger. Councillor North.
Well, I would just raise the issue, do you really want to call it a working group now that we've established that the members of the public are able to attend such meetings and they would have to be publicised, etc.? Would you prefer to call it an informal meeting of councillors or a private meeting of councillors?
Okay, I don't mind. Councillor Pullinger, you wanted to speak?
Yes, so I mean, I'll hold comment on Councillor North's comments, but yeah, I agree with Councillor Fage around the urgency of this. I am happy to go forward and chair a group of councillors to work on this. I'd also like us to note the good work that the office manager has already done in starting contacting some companies who provide web services to start seeing what sort of availability there is out there to support the activity we need to do as a starting point for us. She did ask that ideally not to have too large a group of councillors to work with her, maybe around 5 councillors. And I think that would probably be more productive than trying to get every councillor involved. But obviously that's up to council and those members. So as I say, I'm happy to chair that and work with whichever councillors council nominates to work with me.
Thank you. Councillor Ramsey.
Could I ask Councillor Mark Knight, he was going to look at other websites, I think particularly Hertford, to see how they operated, whether he's been inspired by any other websites that we might look at.
Thank you. So I'd very much like to be part of the working group that's been proposed. I have had a look at a number of websites, and as has been mentioned, I think the office manager's done quite a lot of research as well. So I think it would be good to get a detailed briefing on the work that's already been done by staff. Of course, there is quite a sense of urgency with the forthcoming accessibility regulations, so I think we need to start moving relatively quickly on this. Yeah, I can certainly share more feedback informally if that's helpful.
Lovely, thank you.
Councillor Frank Foster, you were involved in setting down codes of conduct and that. Would you want to be part of the working group?
I think there are people better qualified, to be honest, Madam Mayor. Certainly Councillor Knight, Councillor Pullinger seem to be more au fait with modern practices. I think I'll sit this one out.
Thank you. Do I have volunteers for the working group, people who'd like to be involved? Councillor Grant Fage, Councillor Colin Thomas, and I'd like to put myself forward as the 5th one then, because I'd like to look at it from a totally non-techie, from a user point of view. So that's Councillor Pullinger, Councillor Knight, Councillor Grant Fage, Councillor Thomas and myself. Is everybody happy with that? Thank you very much. I'm moving on now to items for information, and we have the report from the Town Centre Operations Manager. Any comments, councillors? We're asked to note the report. Okay, Councillor Fage.
I propose that we note these changes. I propose that we adopt the policy as was originally proposed a couple of weeks ago. Perhaps we can just have take note of these suggestions from the traders, and the Town Centre Operations Manager can keep a check against sort of these 2 concerns, and then perhaps report back to us in due course if for whatever reason the policy needs to change as a result of this. I don't think they were quite material enough to consider changing the policy at this stage. I think there were things that we did discuss when putting the policy together, but although contentious, we obviously fell down on the side that we did, so I mean, perhaps we agree to disagree on this one. Go ahead with the policy as proposed, but the compromise is that the Town Centre Operations Manager tracks these, properly, and can report back to me as chairman of TCM if he thinks anything needs to change in due course. But I propose that we go ahead with the policy.
Do I have a seconder for that proposal? Thank you very much. So all those in favour of adopting the policy, noting the 2 issues and seeing whether they need to change in the future? Yes. I think that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Works to trees in home woods. Any comments, please? Just note.
Note it.
Yeah, just note. Thank you. And the final thing to note is rather nice, really, a certificate of appreciation to the people of Biggleswade. So we all get a great big pat on the back from the Lord Lieutenant for all of the work that has happened during the pandemic. Can we just note this, colleagues? Yes? Does anybody wish to speak? Councillor Foster, did you wish to speak?
Only to say, presumably we will be broadcasting this on our website so that the general public of Biggleswade are also aware of it.
I think we should, yes, thank you. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much. We now move into a second public open session. And the difference with this one is that any issue that the council is involved in or responsible for can be raised, not just items on the agenda. Names will be noted and recorded in the minutes, and it's a 3-minute slot for everybody. I'm getting indication from Councillor Steve Watkins. So can we allow Steve to speak, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Lovely. I just wanted to put on record my praise for your what I'd call a very mature approach to the local plan. It would be very easy for a town or parish council just to oppose development, I guess, willy-nilly, and cast central beds as the bad guys imposing these things from on high. But you've identified areas that you can support, areas you're more critical of, and you've built a very impressive strategy around that. So in a nutshell, that's it. It's a great credit to you, and it's really good to hear the positive way that you're approaching this. So my thanks for that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Watkins. Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak, please? I'm not getting any indications from other members of the public. So we now have come to the end of our formal agenda, apart from the exempt items. So we need to move into a confidential session. So I'd like to thank everybody. Sorry, Councillor North, are you wanting to speak?
Yes, just belatedly under minutes that I am not recorded as either attending or apologising, and I'm certain that I did one or the other. I can't remember whether I was there or not, actually. But
you were there, Mike.
I think you were eating your dinner at the time, Mike.
If I was there, then I should be listed, but I'm not. I know it's a bit late, but I was a bit late arriving. I couldn't find the link. So.
We'll have a look at that and put that right, Councillor North. Okay, well, now I'm going to make a second attempt at closing the meeting because we need to move into confidential session. So thank you very much, everybody, and thank you for the members of the public who have joined us tonight. Thank you very much.